Hello, Emily. Welcome to the Twitch office hours.
Thank you.
And you're our head of admissions. So what's the admissions news today?
Well, so big news for us today. Today is our first deadline for the 2021 entry year. So November 10th, 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. Big deadline for us. We're very excited.
There we go. And we had a question earlier in chat. I submitted my application. What else is required?
Yeah, so the first part of the application process is exactly what you've done, submitting the written part of your application. What's going to happen next is we'll review your application and we'll let you know what else we need from you. What is required for all students would be your transcripts. So if you're a high school student, you could submit copies of your unofficial transcripts to us at any time. If you're a transfer student, you would submit your college transcripts to us. So that's something that you can get started on now. But again, we'll do a review of your application. For some folks, we may ask for a little bit more information, like a letter of recommendation. We may reach out to you to just talk a little bit more about yourself, your educational trajectory, why you're interested in Make School and computer science. But for most folks, written application, transcripts, good to go.
Awesome. So what are maybe the timelines? So let's assume that all someone needs, maybe they're in high school right now, they're a high school senior and they don't have any college credits. All they need to do is turn in their high school transcript most of the time. What kind of amount of time might somebody expect to wait before they get a decision?
Yeah, generally we try to move pretty quickly. So, from the time your application becomes complete to the time when we give you a decision, we try our best to target about 2 weeks. Maybe let's say 3 weeks just to be safe. But we do try to turn it around pretty quickly. And again, that's kind of at the moment that the application becomes complete. Obviously, we can't make a decision until we have the required documents. If you apply now and you get your required documents in by the end of the month, we will be able to get you a decision before the winter holiday.
Nice. And now you actually have a background at another college. And
Mhm.
so we maybe don't have to talk specifically about which college, but I'm curious if you can say, how is our admissions process different? I know a lot of colleges sort of release decisions in batches. Is that how Make School does it?
It is not exactly how Make School does it. So you are completely right that a lot of other schools have what they might call early action or early decision. And then there's another deadline in January that's regular action, regular decision. You would wait several months and then you get your decision all at once. And for us, we have a process that we call typically called rolling admissions if you're kind of in the profession, which means that as you're submitting your application, you submit your application to us, and as they're coming in, we are reviewing them and releasing decisions once we're able to make a decision. So again, we do try to turn things around pretty quickly instead of making you wait. I think one way that really benefits you, the applicant, is that, once you get an admissions decision from us, you can be like, okay, I'm done with the application process. That's great. Not waiting around and stressing out. That's awesome. But also, you get to become a part of the Make School community as soon as you get that admission decision. So we'll start engaging with you, connecting you to our community, connecting you to other resources, just so that you have more time to explore, learn more about Make School, and really, really decide whether this is going to be the right place for you.
Gotcha. So it sounds like I can get my decision faster.
Mhm.
And I'm curious, does that mean is my application being compared to other applications? How does that work? How are you able to release decisions on the spot?
Mhm. Yeah, we really believe that students who are excited to learn, who are excited to work hard, who are excited about being a computer scientist, we really believe in making space for them at Make School. So, we're much less restricted when it comes to like the number of spaces that we have available. So instead, we're kind of looking at you as an individual within your own unique and individual context and making a decision about you, not relative to other people at your school or in your state or even in our applicant pool.
Great. So I have a few other questions for you, but we have one that I want to take here in chat. So somebody says they were told around December 20th. Does that process take longer? Does that deadline apply to transfers?
The deadline still does apply for transfers. It can sometimes take a little bit longer because we have to do some credit evaluation and things like that. But again, it's not going to take months and months. So again, at the time that you kind of submit your application, you submit all the required documents. Again, we do try to turn it around in 2 to 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. So going back a little bit to the question of like, are you compared to others? Or you're admitted on your own merits? And I know a question that a lot of people always have, and I'm gonna hit you with the hard one. What's the acceptance rate?
That's a good question. And I recognize that I'm talking to a lot of people who probably have some interest in, data and tech and STEM. And I came from a school that was kind of like that. So I always like to say data without context is really unhelpful, right? If you were to like Google make school acceptance rate, I'm not trying to hedge things here. If you were to Google our acceptance rate, you would see things like 10%, right? That is not, I don't think that really captures our admissions process or your chances of being admitted. In fact, if you look at students who complete their applications, so they are submitting their application, submitting their transcripts and any other required documents, the acceptance rate for those students and for students who are US citizens, US permanent residents, or living in the United States, actually the acceptance rate is quite high. It's more like 70%. So again, there are a variety of factors that can skew admit rates at Make School and honestly at any other school. So, I would not let that deter you from applying. Again, we really want Make School to be a place for students of all backgrounds, whether you have a ton of coding experience or very little, whether you are valedictorian of your class or you're not. Again, if you are excited about learning, you're excited about working hard, you're excited about becoming a computer scientist or a software engineer, we want to create the conditions for you to be able to come to Make School.
That sounds really awesome. So you mentioned towards the beginning of that one of the things that maybe doesn't matter as much as people might think is coding experience. Can you speak a little bit more to that? What is it that the admissions is looking for in an applicant? How do they demonstrate an interest in computer science if they don't have experience? And if they do have experience, like, does that give them any advantage? How does that work?
Yeah. So if you don't have experience with computer science, I think it's worth, well, first, I think it's worth telling us in the application why you're interested in computer science, right? Make School, unlike other schools, we offer one degree. It's a Bachelor of Science in Applied Computer Science. And so, and that's it, right? So if you come to Make School and you're like, actually, I don't like computer science, like, you're going to have to leave and go to another school. So we do want to make sure that like Make School is going to be the right fit for you. So talking us through how you arrived at the decision to study computer science, why you think this career is the right fit for you, I think that's going to be really, really important. For students who don't have a lot of technical experience, programming backgrounds, there is a part of the application process where you get to do this kind of interactive puzzle that we call Spark. Is that right, Jordan? I'm still learning all of the acronyms.
It's true. I see now you're making me appear more biased than I was trying to pretend I was. Yes. So I do run the Spark program, which is a special program that we offer during the admissions process to applicants with little to no programming experience. Yes, as Emily said, we only have one degree. We do not want to admit you and bring you to our program, make you a part of our community, and then have you discover that maybe you don't enjoy computer science, or, we want to make sure you have a taste of it before you commit. So as Emily said, we offer Spark, which I frame it as a coding puzzle. So no actual background required. What the puzzle requires, like most puzzles, is attention to detail, thinking through the logic, using the examples that are given, and pattern matching. But it's all real code. So yeah, I'm one of the TAs. We also have students as well who help provide mentorship. That's another thing that I think is important, is that it's not a test.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a learning opportunity. And just like when you're a student at Make School, we don't like tell you to go work on it on your own. We want you to put in the effort because, programming is hard. You need to have that drive, but we don't want you to feel alone. We want to support you through that process. And one of the things we always try to tell people is that one of the best signals to us that even if you're a beginner and you're running into a bug or you're struggling somewhere in the puzzle, it is amazing when you reach out to us for help, because then we know that when you're a student at Make School, which is a very challenging program, we want students that know when to reach out for help. So I maybe after we talk here, or at another one of my office hours, I can give a sneak peek of the Spark coding puzzle. But yeah, it's a mentorship opportunity, a learning opportunity for the applicants. We want to be confident that you are confident about pursuing computer science.
Yeah, I absolutely want to reiterate what Jordan said. It's not a test. This is not an additional test. It's not an additional hoop to jump through. And in fact, if you do apply to Make School and it is recommended, we do ask you to complete Spark, I would approach it as a real learning opportunity, learning about yourself. If you do Spark and you're like, this was awesome, I loved it, I think you can feel very, very confident that you're going to love Make School. If you do Spark and you're like, that was awful, I did not enjoy that, I mean, I think that that's really, really helpful information for you. It's maybe not the only signal, but it could be a good signal that maybe Make School might not be the right thing for you. So
yeah, I think at a lot of other colleges, like you might apply and be admitted to that college and plan to study computer science, and you might not realize sometimes it can be a semester, sometimes more, before you even get into an introduction to computer science course. And we just feel like we don't want to waste your time. We're an accelerated degree. We're trying to accelerate your path to the degree and your career afterwards. So to us, it just makes sense to offer that upfront as part of the admissions process.
Yeah, definitely. And for those of you who have experience with programming, some technical experience, there's a lot of places for you to tell us about that in the application, through the short answer questions, through your list of activities that you've been involved with. There's, if you have a GitHub or links to projects that you've worked on, you can certainly include those in the application. Does it give you an edge? Not really. I would say what gives you an edge is being able to demonstrate to us your excitement for what you're doing, or your excitement for the possibilities of technology and what you'll do with this degree in CS.
We had a question earlier from a transfer student. So I know I have in the back of my mind actually, before we jump onto that, since we're still on the topic of technical skills, we just had a question pop in. Are there any math courses required?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess this could be two things. That could be a question of, is there a minimum math coming into Make School? And then is there a math requirement at Make School as part of the degree? I know math is, like a lot of other traditional programs, are heavy in the math.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I'm going to ask Jordan to help me out with this question, just because I'm new to Make School, so I'm still learning all the little details.
So
I
that's
think,
growth mindset
yeah.
and knowing when to ask others for help. Emily demonstrating it very well. This is a thing that we look for in our students.
And
Okay, well, Emily, let me know which parts can I help answer?
well, why don't you answer the question about math courses at Make School?
Right. So our degree is different from a traditional degree. So at most degrees, like I said, it's very math heavy. I know when I was considering computer science degree at one of the UC schools here in California, like you had to take about 2 years worth of math on top of the really intense computer science requirements. That's not the case here at Make School. Our degree is focused differently. So it's actually a degree in applied computer science as opposed to a more research oriented traditional computer science kind of experience. And so part of what that comes with is this recognition that not every computer scientist is necessarily going to be doing research and pushing the field in new directions with advanced mathematics. Those things are important. A lot of places specialize in that. We're focusing more on people who want to get career and industry oriented skills. And the actual truth is that you may use math, but most of the math that you'll use will already have been programmed for you. So we do teach math, but it is integrated into the classes in which you are using it. So I am actually not sure if we have a single standalone math class. Just like everything else at Make School, it's integrated. So in a single course, you're learning computer science, you're learning professional development and communication skills, and you're learning the math on the spot that you actually need. So of course, our students that are really math interested tend to focus in our data science courses. Those are going to be much more advanced in terms of the math and the statistics that they'll get to experience. I believe we also have a student-led math club, or we have in the past. So there's definitely a place for the people that care very deeply about pursuing the math. But on average, what we have done is we have taken away all the math barriers and we've really brought it down to what are the essentials that you need to get the job done. And then we'll provide you the support that you need if you're interested in more. I believe there is a sort of math requirement, but I think most of our students are able to take a test. And this is also where my knowledge gets a little fuzzy. I believe there's a test that they take when they first arrive at Make School, either during orientation in the first semester, that sort of lets you complete that math requirement. And then I think there may be like one math class that students can take to pass that. I'm going to put a lot of asterisks in the air here because again, we are sort of representing the admissions team, and the college team is always evolving and finding the best ways to integrate all of these important skills. So it may change. There is a lot of demand for advanced math, so we may have math courses in the future, but it is not essential. So we know this is a big barrier, very sore subject for a lot of people that have maybe had negative experience with math in the past. And we want to reassure you, this is not a math heavy program. It's like the right amount of math is required and no more than that.
That I'm glad to hear that. That's what I assumed to be true, but yeah, and you can imagine. I mean, so to answer the reverse is what is required for admissions purposes. Yes, having some background in math, right, algebra. If you're able to get to pre-calc, awesome. Like you're going to start out on a really strong foot because there are I mean, I'm not a computer scientist, but there are these mathematical principles that underlie the theory, the computer science theory. And so sure, you're going to start out on a strong foot, but it's not going to be a requirement for admission.
Yeah, that's actually a great point, Emily. I would say in terms of thinking about high school courses and what is a level that somebody should probably be comfortable at, I would say algebra. And the reason for that is algebra tends to be the first math related class where people experience working with variables. And now, again, asterisks, variables in math are not identical to variables in computer science, but it is kind of a very important concept. And there is a lot of math that does share things with this concept of when you have an X or a Y, that it represents whatever the answer is, right? And so in computer science, it's very similar. You kind of get used to working with variables and working with functions and understanding that the value of a variable can change depending on what the function does or what kind of feature it applies. So that I think is an important math level to feel comfortable with. And if you're not comfortable with that, that's something that you could bring up again during the admissions process, because we recognize that students come from diverse backgrounds, and the place that you came from and the school that you have access to as a young adult should not limit your opportunities. And if you need support, please let us know. We want to provide it.
Yeah. I loved it when I was interviewing for Make School. One thing that I heard over and over and over again, which was such a different philosophy than like every other school that I'd ever like had contact with, um, was this description of the admissions process as a coaching opportunity or as a ladder, right? It's not gatekeeping. It's not trying to create these hurdles and only allow a select few in. It's working with students to get them where they want to be in their educational journey, whether it's Make School or honestly another place. We want to help you through that process. So, understanding where you come from, your strengths, and maybe the places where you've had less exposure will help us better serve you.
What about other kinds of alternative backgrounds? So I'm getting the sense already that people don't all need to be valedictorians and things of that nature. But what about the support for transfer students who maybe haven't reached like a traditional transfer student level? I know there are many colleges where like if you have 5 transfer credits to 20 transfer credits, sometimes they won't take you until you reach like some threshold. Is that true at Make School, or is there any barrier? Can you transfer at any time?
Yeah, so you can transfer at any time. There are some categories that I have not learned all of the credit limits, but at some point you become a transfer student. At some point less than that, you're a first year with credits if you've taken some college courses. So yeah, again, we're going to work with you to kind of, obviously we outline this information a lot on our website, but we will work with you to make sure that you're submitting the documents that are required for you, given your individual circumstances. And honestly, I will say like another thing that drew me to Make School was that there did seem to be a fairly, relatively large population of transfer students, or kind of what we might call returning students. So students who've been out of high school for a little while and dabbled in courses here and there, and then, came back and decided to get a degree. So I actually think that Make School is pretty uniquely well designed for students who have some college experience. You know what doesn't work for you, and you are ready to find a place that really does work for you, and you have the self-motivation and time management skills, study skills. You have those kind of life experiences that are going to allow you to really thrive in the kind of program that we have here. So yeah, I really think that that Make School is a good fit for a lot of different students at various points in their educational journey.
Are there different any different requirements, for example, for like homeschooled students, or I don't know, students that maybe have moved around a lot? I know we've had students before that were domestic students, but they've studied internationally. Maybe their family traveled. Are there any other weird edge cases, as we say in computer science, that might be useful for people to know about just in case there's extra steps? I mean,
Yeah.
and we can dive into the international questions afterwards, but maybe just focusing on the domestic students that may have edge cases.
So now I'm kind of looking through our written requirements because I have not memorized all of this
That's
information.
right. Use your
Yeah,
resources. Excellent modeling.
yes. um, so maybe Jordan, you've reviewed more applications here at Make School. This is something that you want to talk through. I mean, I can say from my
Yeah.
experience, I've seen all kinds of applications in my career. And so if you are in a situation that you think is unique, reach out to us and we can help guide you through it and figure out how to get the documents that you need. And I would just say broadly, that is true of any college that you're applying to. Jordan, why don't you jump in with specific news?
I mean, I guess I didn't really have anything super more specific than that. I was just trying to plumb the depths of your admissions knowledge, with my interview host skills.
Yeah.
We did have a question here about grades on a 4.0 system. And again, not sure if this is a question about like, do they need to submit their past grades in a 4.0 system, or if the question is about how Make School grades. I can really quickly answer the last one, unless you like to, Emily.
Well, so it is my understanding that we don't have grades at Make School.
That is correct.
It's super cool. Again, I think the philosophy here, and please jump in to expand on this, Jordan, the philosophy is that things like, metrics like grades and test scores, standardized test scores, do not actually capture your ability or how much you've learned. Being able to take a concept and apply it to a real world situation is not something that is easily captured in a problem set, right? Or a multiple choice exam. So no, we don't have grades, which is not to say that we don't have standards.
Right. Yeah, so we actually use rubrics for nearly everything, including in the admissions process. We have rubrics that we use to just like identify and make sure that Make School is a good fit for the applicant, is the way that I like to phrase it. Because again, we're not trying to keep people out. We're trying to find the people that that will come to Make School and thrive. We don't want to set anyone up for like failure or not reaching the end goal that they were seeking. But yeah, actually, you mentioned earlier test scores. I know there's a test score question related to admissions. How do we treat test scores at Make School?
So again, our process, I think it's really important to just I know that I said this before, but the more that we can say it, our philosophy at Make School when it comes to the admissions process is that our process is much more focused on these, what in the profession we call non-cognitive skills, rather than grades and test scores. So what we are concerned about is knowing that you can work hard, that you can respond to setbacks, that you can ask for help. Now, one way, and not by no means the only way, one way that you can demonstrate to us that you are, that you work hard, you show up day after day, you ask for help, that those qualities can manifest themselves in your grades, right? Like having good grades for some people is a reflection of that work ethic. That is not true for everybody. There are a lot of things that get in the way of, performing to your best ability in class or on a test.
Even apart from COVID, right?
Yeah, even apart from COVID, right? Yeah, like I'm talking universally. Certainly COVID. But classrooms aren't designed for all kinds of learners. There are life circumstances that can come up that can impact your ability to show up for class and get your work done. So we completely understand that. So if your grades are not as strong, I think being able to demonstrate to us that you have learned from these setbacks, how you're going to approach learning in the future. I think that this is going to be an important part of the admissions process. But again, we're not solely focused on just GPA and test scores. And in fact, we're test optional. So, you know, we always have been test optional. We will continue to be test optional, even apart from COVID, but certainly during COVID, you don't have to submit scores to us. Again, they tell us very, very little about your actual ability to succeed in the kind of program that we've designed. That was a very long-winded answer, and I apologize. I tend to like go off.
Yeah, no, I mean, we got the important part. Test optional.
Test optional.
I know you said you only had 30 minutes, but do you have a few more minutes to stay on, Emily, and maybe just hit some key points for international students?
Sure, I can try.
Yeah. So I guess the first question is, just to throw it all out there, how does the international applicant process differ?
Yeah, so the difference is there's one big difference for international citizens, and that is that we require an application fee. So for other students, the application is free. For international citizens, unfortunately, we do require an application fee. There's a slight difference in documentation. You know, we will at some point ask for copies of your visa, and you know, we have a slightly earlier, like last deadline, because it takes us longer to process both to turn around decisions, but then to process everything that you're going to need in order to get a visa here in the United States. I'm going to anticipate your follow-up question. Maybe folks know about Make School's unique financing model. I'm not sure.
You are a mind reader, Emily.
Wow. We've only been working together for a month, and I can already, we are intuiting each other. So we have a unique financial model at Make School, where basically you come to Make School, you don't pay. We cover your loans until you get a job. So we're kind of offering this insurance or student kind of protection system. We want to make sure that you come to Make School, you have a great experience, you have the skills, the networks that you need to succeed. And if we haven't given that to you, we feel that it's not right for you to pay, right? So you only pay when you get a job. Now, as you can imagine, that involves a lot of risk on the part of Make School, right? That's we're entering into this contract with you, and there's quite a bit of risk involved. And we have, you know, sadly, we don't have multi-billion-dollar endowments. And so we do have to be careful, right, about our finances. It is more expensive for us, unfortunately, to educate international citizens, and there's a little bit more risk involved in that. And so we're only able to offer this financing model to a very small number of international students and international citizens. So for that reason, you know, we want to be clear in the admissions process that it's not a guarantee that you are going to get this funding. We want to make sure that you are prepared to enter. I mean, it can cost a lot of money, unfortunately, to apply as an international student. You're going to have to get your documents, your transcripts and things evaluated by an agency that we want you to work with. Like, there's all of these things that you're going to have to do that are going to cost money. And we really don't want you to enter in this process unless you are really able to do that. There are other options available for you. As much as, you know, I would love to kind of change the reality of the financial situation and the visa situation, the cost of, you know, I would love to fix all of these things, but I can't yet. We're working on it.
We're not yet at the one global,
yeah,
like no borders.
We're not quite there yet.
Yeah.
So yeah, did I cover everything that you were thinking, Jordan?
I think so. I think, yeah, most international students, I think, know about the extra document process, but for those who aren't, it's a good sort of reminder that unfortunately, and like some of these are fees that we don't control. These are just external costs that come as part of the requirement. We do get those questions a lot of, can we waive them? And unfortunately, the answer is no, because at the end of the day, we're dealing with government regulations. And as I'm sure most international students or students considering being international students here in the US, the government and the visa process can be quite challenging. And so that does also impact, sort of trickles down and impacts our process. We have another question here that maybe is one that you and I can answer jointly together based on who has the most recent information. What is your best guess? I'll say your most educated guess based on the information that we have so far about future remote classes. And I'll interpret this as online classes, whether you are located in San Francisco or not, related to COVID.
Mhm. Yeah, gosh, I mean, that's like the $1 million question, right? Like I feel like we do hope to offer an in-person education for students in the fall, but so much of it depends on the pandemic, and how things are looking. I actually am really proud of Make School's approach to handling to the decisions that they made very, very early on to just be remote this entire year. I think a lot of other schools did not make those calls and thought that like Make School was a little, maybe overreactive or being too conservative. And in fact, I think Make School was right, as we've seen all of these schools struggling with kind of COVID outbreaks and things. And so, we will continue to put the safety of our community first. That being said, again, I think all of us hope that we can be in person in some way in the fall. I will also say that actually, like, Make School's transition to remote education, I think it's really hard to envision, because I understand that, like, for most people, like, you're in Zoom all day and it kind of sucks, like, so it's hard for you to envision a remote learning environment that is exciting and engaging and dynamic. But in fact, I think Make School was able to really make that transition very, very well. And our current students are very happy with the education and their experience in remote classes. So even if we do have to be virtual in some way in the fall, I actually think that the experience will be a very positive one. And we're still, figuring out how to create. I think the biggest thing, the hardest thing to do remote is not like delivering an engaging class, an interactive class, but actually creating community. And so that's definitely top of mind for all of us at Make School, certainly for our student experience folks. And so we're continuing to think about ways that we can create community, create opportunities for, building relationships and building friendships, even in a remote kind of world.
Yeah, I mean, I think that everywhere is struggling with that. And like you said, Emily, we get a lot of positive feedback that we're maybe not doing it perfectly yet,
Yeah.
but we're this many months into doing it. We're getting better at it every day. For example, I mean, even for outside of our student community, I know you and I last weekend at the Computer Science Community Showcase was super fun.
Yeah, I was gonna say it as an example of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and like that's just like a fraction of a taste of a hint of the other kinds of events that are kind of happening behind the scenes in private spaces where students are building community with each other. We have very active student group community, both student resource groups such as like identity-based groups. We have a Women Plus in Tech. We have oh shoot, I'm blanking on the name of it now, but one of our clubs is kicking off a Learn How to Cook series soon, where they're going to take turns teaching each other how to cook different cuisines from around the world, because we do have students from all over. And that was actually an event that we had in person previously. Was we had like an international experience day where people kind of potluck brought in foods from their ethnic or cultural backgrounds, which was really fun. So it's exciting to see that at Make School, the students themselves actually provide so much, and like they demand a great experience, but they also help build that great experience. I think I was talking to someone earlier today and I came up with this phrase in my mind, is that our students don't just build projects, they actually build the community. And that, I mean, the community at Make School is really what I've always found so special. Um, for anyone who hasn't heard my spiel yet, like I'm actually an alumni myself, so I just have a lot of pride and care for the community and the space that we build. And it's just really exciting to see that every new batch of students that comes, whether in person or who joins us virtually, like bring that energy about making connections, building friendships, and really supporting each other. Actually, I think that was something that we didn't quite cover when we mentioned grades versus rubrics earlier. And part of why we think that that's so important is that we are preparing people for the real world. And at most places in the real world, you don't get a grade for whether or not your TPS report was like 3 points better than your neighbor or not. And if it was, they don't get like fired or a D or an F or something, right? You're usually graded on your collaborative spirit and your willingness to help the team. And so that's another reason why we don't have grades, is because grades are the wrong incentive, and they lead people to compete against each other to get the highest grade. And that's part of why we do rubrics, is because like our students will tell you they have no reason not to collaborate and to help everyone's project be better. um, yeah, just kind of
Yeah.
circling back that as it came to my top of my mind.
Yeah.
Oh, we have a question of what is rubrics. um, and I see with the spelling there, it sounds like Rubik's cube, and it's so a rubric. I'm trying to think what is the best way to describe it without me having one ready to pull it up on the
Right, right. I
screen.
know. I'm trying to, a rubric would be kind of a set of criteria or standards that you are evaluated against. And it's not a like a pass fail. It would be like, what have you what is your level of accomplishment within each criteria?
So it's kind of like a satisfactory, doing even more awesome and amazing, but I don't even, that's not even, so I think kind of old school, like a trade school kind of education, the idea of an apprenticeship and mastery along the way, I think is a better way to describe a rubric, where like the rubric, it doesn't mean that if you're not in the sort of like most advanced column that you suck at it. It means you're new to it. And so it's more like a progression through levels of experience rather than a measurement of your capabilities or capacities. Because at Make School, we always believe that everyone can get to the highest level of mastery in a skill, but we recognize that people can move through those at different speeds, or you might have interests. Like some of our students are very entrepreneurial. So when it comes to rubrics based on their professional development, their networking skills, they may rate or like, be rated as more experienced or advanced than other students who are still more focused on like they want to crush it in data science. And so that's what we see at Make School, is that everyone progresses in the rubrics over time, but there's no pressure to say you all have to be perfect in everything by the end of this class or else you're not good at it. It means, hey, you had a weak spot here, and that could mean you need more support, or that could be the student just honestly saying, hey, I didn't focus on that this time because I wanted to round out these other skills first because that makes the most sense for me.
Right. And I think it has the benefit of making it very clear, like here's what the expectations are for this particular skill, data science. What does it mean to be proficient in data science? Maybe this is a bad example, but and it makes it very clear kind of where you are and where you need to, what you need to do to get to where you want to go. And yeah, I think, right, the defining it as this kind of progression rather than, you know, you have a grade and you have to retake the class is.
I still have some trauma from some of my undergraduate math classes where, no joke, you would get an F on the midterm. You would get
Yes.
less than 50 points out of 100, and you would spend the whole semester just not knowing if you were actually passing the class or not, because they would curve the grade at the end and magically all the F's became C's, all the D's became B's.
Yes.
And if you got anything above that, you were like a rock star. But it was a very emotional journey. And with a rubric, you can look at it yourself and you can self-rate. And you can, as long as you're being honest with yourself, you can be like, yeah, I'm feeling pretty solid. I'm progressing.
I feel like this is maybe an aside, but and again, I didn't study STEM, so, but I worked at a STEM institution. I have many people in my life who have studied and are studying STEM and going through STEM programs. And it does feel like this is very much part of not at Make School, but at other places, part of the culture of like, we're going to weed out the weak. You know, like we're going to give you a D on every single midterm so that you'll work even harder. And then right at the end, you magically have a B. And it's like, why did you do that to me? But it is very much this philosophy of like, we have to see who can cut it, you know, and I am very happy to say that that is not the culture at Make School, right? It is very much this like
in that environment, your classmates, unless you have a little group of friends, they don't want to help you. They want you to get a worse F on the midterm than they did so that they can be the one with a B at the end.
Yeah.
Awesome. It looks like we are coming up on the last few minutes. Thank you, Emily, for sticking around. Thank you to everyone in chat. I think part of the reason why Emily stayed is because you had great questions that enabled us to sort of keep answering. Like, we don't want to talk about things you don't want to hear. So when you have questions, we do really appreciate it. So in that light, if anyone does have any final questions, feel free to pop them in there. Otherwise, Emily, what if 6 minutes from now, I have an amazing question. Where do I send it? Where do I go to reach out to you or a member of the admissions team to get that answer?
Yeah, so there are a lot of places where you can go. So obviously, if you are like me and you don't like talking on the phone, just shoot us an email, admissions@makeschool.com. I'm pulling up a couple links here of if you do like talking to people on the phone, we will happily speak to you. And I am just pulling up the URL here so I can drop it in chat. Here we go. If you would like to schedule time to talk to an admissions counselor, it would be right now. You can schedule time either with me or with Tanya, who is amazing and knows everything about the admissions process. Schedule time there. We have office hours a couple times a week as well that you can register for. Let me pull up that URL. I'm sorry, I should have been more prepared.
No worries.
Let's see. Jordan, you keep talking while I find
Okay, great. So I think one of the things that we didn't talk about is you mentioned earlier that we don't have these sort of traditional like batches of applications. So somebody might be wondering like, why bother applying now? The world is still crazy. I'll just wait. And I think you kind of mentioned it earlier, is that as soon as someone is admitted, and really even as soon as you apply, we will start to bring you into our community. And I think in our recent meeting, we actually confirmed a special opportunity for some of our early applicants. Can you say more about that?
Yeah, I'm super excited about this and very jealous of y'all. So if you apply today, and complete your application, meaning you submit your required documents by the end of the month, but submit the written part of your application.
So I don't need my transcripts today?
Not today, that's fine. Submit the written portion of your application by 11:59 p.m. Pacific time today. You will be eligible, or we will pair you for a kind of conversation, Zoom conversation with a Silicon Valley founder. So if you're interested in tech, in entrepreneurship, we have a really amazing network of folks who are excited to talk to you, and we'll be able to pair you with somebody to talk to.
That sounds awesome. And I know we're looking forward to building out more opportunities for, again, our admits and applicants to interact with our community. Ooh, super great last minute question here. Are virtual tours a possibility? And I will say, as soon as we let Emily hop off, I will give you the best virtual tour that I can. It is a tour of a virtual space that actually, Emily, I don't know if you have your Twitch stream up, if you want to see it, do you want to stay on for a minute and see the virtual space that I made?
Yeah.
All right. All right. Do a little transition here. So, hello, welcome. This is my Make School office in Animal Crossing. So we don't have tours right now of the building because it's empty. I mean, there's furniture in the building, but I did what I could to create the best imitation of the experience of our Make School office here. And I know we do have a campus tour video on our YouTube. And so I actually implore you, please go watch that video. I'm actually the tour guide in that video as well. And let me know, did I capture the vibe? Does this look approximate? I can show you around here. Look, I got my office. I got the bike that I rode to work on in San Francisco. Don't forget to wear your helmet. We got a little scooter back here. Many of our students ride those to campus. We have a gong. I actually used to use a gong in person for one of the classes that I taught. We use that to celebrate achievements and to announce the starts and ends of classes. I've got a little electronics kit over here. We have a maker lab at Make School, so that's what we're representing over here, working with a little Arduino, getting your red light turned on. And I don't know if you noticed, but my character's not wearing shoes. Emily, did you get to visit the campus?
Yeah,
did you experience our shoe-free experience?
Yeah, I remembered, so I knew that it was going to be shoe-free, and I was like, I don't know what this means. And so I wore very cute socks for my interview in person in December. Yeah. I felt very comfortable.
Yeah, so this is my virtual tour. Thanks everyone for humoring me with that. So normally during office hours, Emily, I sit here with my character in my office for office hours. So, you know, oh, I didn't say I made the shirt that my character's wearing. It matches the Make School shirt that we'll be sending out to our student ambassadors soon.
Nice.
Yeah, so trying to this is part of what Make School does. We're like, let's be weird on the internet. Let's figure out how to build community. Let's not worry about being serious for no reason. Yeah. So as soon as we reach a point where campus tours are possible again, remote or virtual, we will definitely offer those. But until now, we have that video and just kind of like the opportunity to meet up on Zoom or Spatial Chat or here on Twitch to engage with the community. And yeah, the building is less important than the community is what I would say, but the building's pretty cool too.
Yeah, the building's cool.
All right. So thank you so much for that last question. I'm always delighted to show off my Animal Crossing work. And thank you everyone who came. Emily, do we want to do a cute little, like I've got the email address and our link. We can do a little like point below. Yeah. Hey, apply now. Yay. Sweet. All right. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Emily, for coming.
Thank you for
And
having
I will
me.
say we look forward to reading your applications.
Yes, we do.
Awesome. All
Bye.
right. Thank you, everyone. Bye.